Hello, and thank you for joining us here at 816 Podcasting and presenting from Sacko to Shiva with Chase and Tom. On today's episode, we will recap Week 1, cover injuries around the league, give you waiver wire gems, some buy low and sell high candidates, and a special guest interview from an 816 Podcast Listener League owner. That'll probably be about it for the show today. It's quite a bit. We got a lot to cover. Tom, what was one of your favorite games that you had to cover?
Well, I got to watch, I didn't cover this one, but I got to watch the Oakland,
Tennessee
game. That was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It was definitely a high-scoring game like people thought. I mean, they were passing. I think we have Derek Carr throwing 32 times, completing 22 of them, and Mariota 41, completing 25. They were both pretty much neck and neck. Mariota, and neither of them had turnovers. So, just great job controlling the ball. Mariota rushed for 1 touchdown, didn't pass for any. Carr passed for 2. My favorite story of this is how I know the Oakland's backfield looks, and it is Marshawn Lynch. Everybody was high on him, but man, I had question marks around it. But 18 for 76 with 1 reception, 1 target for 16 yards. It's not a bad stat line.
No, and I think that's right where they want to keep him, right around that 15 to 20 total touches in a week, because he is a little bit older, and once you hit that age, you start breaking down a little bit more.
Oh, definitely. And there's one play in particular that I loved where he just ran over a 350-pound defensive lineman. And that guy just, he hit the dirt hard. And I was just like, there's Skittles. But then there was another play where he had just just bulldozed at the line of scrimmage. And I was like, okay, he kind of looks old. And one thing I noticed is there was a couple times where he ran off to the sideline where he did look out of breath. You could tell that, I understand he just went through a whole offseason and everything like that, but you could tell there's a little bit of wear on him.
Yeah, well, that's Marshawn Lynch. You take a year off, you're gonna be a little rusty.
Yeah. Then, of course, you have Amari Cooper, who had 13 targets, right? 5 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown. One of my biggest worries about him is in the red zone, he was on one drive, he was targeted 3 times in a row. 2 of them were drops. Yeah,
I saw the plays. The 2 drops, there was a player in his face, so it doesn't concern me too much. But the good thing is they're throwing to him in the red zone. They
didn't throw much to him into the red zone after that drive, though. They kind of tempered it back a little bit. So, but it was just one of those things. Man, even you're a professional athlete, even with that defender in your face, you can't. When that ball is that close to your numbers, that close, touching your hands, you got to catch that ball.
Yeah, you got to catch it. You're a professional. It's your job. They should have been touchdowns. But it's a good sign that they did throw to him 3 times, almost in a row, I believe, in the red zone. So that's a good thing.
Now, one of my favorite, deeper league tight ends to get would be Jared Cook. He had 5 targets, 5 receptions, 56 yards. That doesn't sound like great stats, but for a tight end, that's 10 points in PPR.
Yeah, I'm never going to be on board with Jared Cook, but that's just my personal. I think that usually his first 2 games are the best of the season, and then he kind of fades away.
All right. So what was one of the games you had to cover?
The first one that I covered was the Jets at Buffalo, and I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on this one just because it wasn't that great of a game. But, the players we said were going to have big games had big games. Tyrod Taylor, 224, 2 touchdowns, 38 rushing yards. McCoy, 22 rushes, 110, 5 catches, 49 yards. The one surprise was how much Tolbert got involved in this game. He had 12 carries for 42 yards and a touchdown.
Do you think some of that had to do with the game script because they were just running the clock? They were in dominant position the whole time.
Yeah, and that's what you want your backup to do: come in, kill some clock, and Tolbert's a big guy, so the goal line thing I think might be a thing going forward.
Okay. There's one thing, though. Tyrod Taylor did have 1 interception, but it wasn't his fault. Charles Clay should have cut that ball, bounced off of him, and it got intercepted.
Yeah.
And I believe that was in the end zone, too, wasn't it?
Yep, it was in the end zone.
So, and Charles Clay actually looked pretty good in that game, too. What do you have,
He had 9 targets, 4 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown.
That's awesome. I actually started him in a couple DFS leagues.
Yeah, and he was one of my sleeper guys that I was looking at all week. So
that qualifies as a stud performance from a sleeper.
Yeah, that was a good. One of the problems though was Zay Jones. He only had 4 targets, caught 1 of them for 21 yards, and he's one of my favorites.
Man, I think that's just gonna be a tough thing going forward. Because, I mean, right now the person that Tyrod Taylor has the most rapport with would be Charles Clay and LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, and what I'm hopeful going forward is that Zay Jones starts picking up the slack and getting on the same page with Tyrod.
I think that's something we should watch going forward.
The one note that I have for the Jet side was Robbie Anderson was on the field 100% of the offensive snaps. So I'm thinking that he's going to be the guy to own in that offense.
Even after them saying Jermaine Kearse will be their number one wide receiver?
Yeah, I think Kearse is more that I'm just going to go do a little curl and sit down right there and catch a ball.
So a possession receiver.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do much.
Maybe like a third and short, or 3rd and 5 type target.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And then Powell, real quick, 7 carries for 22 yards, 5 receptions for 17 yards, and everybody was on this guy. Like, everybody wanted this guy on their team because they thought that he was going to be the focal point of that offense. And
everybody forgot about Forte.
Yeah, and I've been saying, what if the defense focuses on stopping Powell because that's their only weapon? And I think that's what we're going to see going forward, is they're going to focus on stopping him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably about all we can really cover from that game. All right, so I'm going to cover my favorite game, of course. I mean, got to rep those Eagles. So, as I was saying last week on Saturday, so Zach Ertz had the game I told you all he was going to have. I told everybody the stats. If you set him, that's on you. I gave you what he was going to do. He had 8 targets, 8 receptions, 93 yards. Carson Wentz loved throwing to the middle of the field, and Zach Ertz had 4 first down plays, and they were all on 3rd downs too. That's just great. I love it. Jeffrey, I said he was going to be shadowed by Josh Norman. Of course he was. 3 receptions, 38 yards. The true winner of this game, the Philadelphia defense. They did great things. They shut down Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins looked frustrated. He was not on the same page with any of his receivers. They were on different wavelengths the whole time. Kind of made me worried. Like I was telling everybody, he lost 2,000-yard receivers. He lost his offensive coordinator. That's a lot to lose and have to go into a new season. Terrell Pryor had 11 targets, 6 receptions, 66 yards. Somebody I would look at trying to get. Other than that, I mean, Reed, it came out that he has a fracture in his toe. So I'm kind of like, maybe I stay away from him. He had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 36 yards. Did not look good at all. The whole run game for Washington was bad. They averaged about, I think it was 2.3 yards per carry as a whole. The only person that's did anything was Chris Thompson, and I wouldn't buy on him just because that was a bad play by the Philadelphia defense. He had 3 people try and tackle him. Nobody wrapped him up. They tried doing shoulder tackles, and hey, he's a professional. You got to wrap him up. His job is to be elusive. He bounced off you and took off for 29 yards. That's on Philadelphia's D. One
of the disappointments I thought in that game was Rob Kelly. I thought that he would be able to pound out some more yardage.
I thought he was going to be like maybe 20 touches and like 60, 70 yards, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Like I knew we had a good defensive line, but that was rough. I was kind of shocked by that as well.
So real quick in that game, I had an injury. Caleb Sturgis.
Yeah, Caleb Sturgis has an injury. Got placed on the IR. Will be out for a while. There was also another injury on defense. Ron Darby dislocated his ankle, and it looked gross. When it happened, I was smacking my buddy on the arm. I was like, "Ooh, he broke his ankle!" Like his right leg was just laid out straight, and his ankle or his bottom of his foot was facing his left leg, and I was just like, "Ooh, that's not good." But luckily, there's no ligament damage, and 4 to 6 weeks is what they're expecting.
That's not too bad.
So, what's up next for you?
I got the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, and everybody knows Dalton threw 4 interceptions, and that, gave Baltimore everything they needed. Flacco only threw for 121 yards, a touchdown and interception. And then the stars of this game were Terrence West, 19 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. And Javoris Allen, another guy that I'm kind of high on coming out of this game. 21 carries, 71 yards. And then we had Woodhead. Woodhead got injured, so that leaves that pass-catching availability out there. Macklin also had 4 targets, got caught 2, 58 yards, and a touchdown. And one of the skunks was Mike Wallace. Only had 1 catch for 8 yards.
Yeah, that was one of my bad picks, is Mike Wallace.
Yeah, we all do it. And then, the Cincinnati backfield, that we still don't have any real clear idea who's going to lead this. Gio had 7 carries. Hill had 6 carries. Mixon had 8 carries. So they're all right next to each other. Gio probably had the best day with 40 yards rushing and 1 catch for 39 yards. So he looked pretty explosive in that situation. And Mixon, he had 1 carry for 8 yards, and then he had another 7 carries for 1 yard. So we're still waiting to see what he does. Everybody knows about A.J. Green. 5 catches, 74 yards. We'll hit it on it real quick. And then we have Tyler Eifert. He was one of my sits of the week.
Good call. The
Baltimore defense is tough against that tight end position. One of my notes that I got real quick was Macklin was on the field 70% of the time for Baltimore, and that led all the wide receivers. So I think knowing that, Macklin is the guy that you should probably go out there and target.
Yes.
And that's all I got on that game.
All right, so I think we covered most of the Oakland and Tennessee game.
Yep.
We're going to cover another big game that has a lot of news around it. I'm going to cover the Arizona-Detroit game for you all real quick. So Carson Palmer looked horrendous. Like, he looked old. I don't know how else to put it. Like, he looked like Eli Manning. It was just bad. So Palmer had 27 completions on 48 attempts for 269 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. One of them being a pick 6. That's not good. And against supposed to be an easy Detroit defense.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest news from this game, David Johnson out at least 8 weeks. Was just put on the IR, short-term IR for the Arizona. So maybe look at Kerwin Williams. They just re-signed Chris Johnson. So I don't know what the implications of that are, because they did pick Williams over Johnson on the final cuts. So maybe it's just depth. Fitz looks good on PPR standpoint anyways. 6 receptions, 13 targets, 74 yards. And like I said, J.J. Nelson was going to be a great DFS play. If you played him, you had 5 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown. That's I think he was like 3,800 on DraftKings. That's great points.
That's pretty good return on your investment there.
Yeah. So what were you going to say real quick?
The Kerwin Williams, CJ2K, and there's one other guy there.
Andre Ellington.
Real quick, I'll say that I think Kerwin Williams is going to be the running back, and then I think Ellington is going to be the receiving back, and then I think CJ2K is going to be a combination of both, but I really see a split in that backfield.
Yeah, I think it goes RBBC now. On the other side of the ball, Stafford, 4th quarter comeback. Guy looked great. Like, I don't know how he does it in those 4th quarters, but Jesus. 29 completions on 41 attempts, 292, 4 TDs, 1 interception, 2 rushes for 14 yards. Abdullah, I kind of busted on that. He got the usage, all right? He's the feature back. It showed in that game. He outtouched everybody by like 12, 13 times. He had 15 carries for 30 yards, not good. 3 receptions on 4 targets, 11 yards. Struggled against that Arizona defense. I was hoping with the linebacking injuries and Calais Campbell being gone that they were still going to they were going to struggle a little bit, but not too much. Theo Riddick, 1 rush for -1 yard, 6 receptions on 7 targets, 27 yards, and a TD. And obviously, the other 2 names that you want to know about, Golden Tate, he is what he is. He's a reception machine and a target machine. 12 targets, 10 receptions, 107 yards. That's 20 points in any PPR league. And then you got the Galladay in. Everybody's going to be picking him up. Probably going to be one of the number 1 waiver pickups tomorrow. He was targeted 7 times, 4 receptions for 69 yards and 2 TDs. And one of those TDs, he laid out. Like, it was like he committed to it. The other one was a red zone pass, and he caught it in the corner, and he just bodied that guy to catch it. Like, and he stayed in bounds, and I was impressed by it.
He's their big body wide receiver.
Yeah. And Matt Stafford hasn't had one of those since Megatron.
Yep.
All right, what's next for you?
So I got the Atlanta-Chicago. Matt Ryan, 321, 1 touchdown, had 3 rushes, which is kind of weird for 11 yards. Devontae Freeman, 12 carries for 37 yards. Not great, but he he had a touchdown, so I mean that made up for it. But only 2 catches for him, which is kind of weird because he usually catches the ball a little bit more than that. Then his backup Tevin Coleman was one of my sleepers for the week. He didn't do bad. He had 8 carries for 16 yards and 4 catches for 42 yards, which, I mean, that's still 10 points, and that's the flex guy that I was looking at. Julio, 4 catches, 66 yards. And we had the target leader for them, and it Mohamed Sanu. 9 targets, caught 6 of them for 47 yards. And then everybody has seen or heard about Austin Hooper. 2 targets, 2 catches, 128 yards, and a long touchdown where he stiff-armed a guy to the ground and ran for almost an 80-yard touchdown.
Now, is that somebody you might sell high on? Because both of those plays were on busted coverage. Like, he was wide open on both of those. Nobody near him.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and get him the ball more going forward just because he does have that explosiveness. Yeah. So I would, you're not going to get a whole lot if you try and trade a tight end, so I'll probably just sit on him and hold him.
Okay.
So then we got the quarterback for Chicago, Glennon, 213 yards and a touchdown. Not special, nothing great, but he kept them in the game the whole way, so that's a good thing for them. Might not get Trubisky anytime soon. You never want to rush those rookies into it. Then we have Jordan Howard, 13 carries, 52 yards and a touchdown. He actually had 3 catches for 14 extra yards, which is a lot coming from Howard because he's not one of those running backs that catches balls. And then the star, I would almost say star of the week, Tariq Cohen, the human joystick. 5 carries, 66 yards, 12 targets in the pass game, caught 8 of them for 47 yards and a touchdown. And he dropped the go-ahead touchdown with a minute left. So, I mean, they're definitely focusing on getting him the ball.
Yeah, definitely their utility knife.
Kendall Wright, I think, is going to get an uptick because we do have Kevin White broke his collarbone, so he's out for the season.
Yep.
That's another one of those injuries where I think we're going to have to shift focus away from him and onto Kendall Wright. I don't really don't want to talk about the tight end, but I will. Zach Miller, six targets, 4 for 39. It's not a bad day, and somebody's going to have to take some of the pressure off of all the other guys.
Yep.
Kendall Wright was on the field for 60% of the offensive snaps for them. But the star of this game was Tariq Cohen, and probably my number 1 PPR waiver wire ad for the week. And that's all I got for Atlanta, Chicago. What do you got next?
So I got Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So with that game, Big Ben, as I said, was going to have 300 passing yards, 1 TD. I was wrong, guys. I'm sorry. I was so wrong. He had 263 passing yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, 3 rushes for -8 yards. By my stats, that's a 1-point difference in fantasy between what I projected and what he got. So if you want to harp on me, you can harp on me, but realize that's just how the game was going to go. I feel very confident with that stat line. Le'Veon Bell had 10 rushes, though, for 32 yards. I'm kind of worried that maybe Pittsburgh was trying to make a point to Bell after that holdout, because if they would have ran the ball more, I think the game script would have been a little bit different. But they just weren't even trying to run the ball. He had 4 rushes in the first half. That's his all-time low since 2010.
Yeah, it's probably making a point. They probably want to, make sure that he's in shape, can do all the things that he normally does, and then, next week, the week after that, get moving, get going.
And then, of course, Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown, 11 targets, 11 receptions, 182. Big Ben's favorite target, as always. Martavis Bryant. Now, he struggled a little bit. 2 receptions for 6 yards, or 2 receptions on 6 targets, 14 yards. One of those receptions, he just fell down at the line of scrimmage, and it just looked bad. It's like, man, you're supposed to have been so much better than what you were before. You were great then. You put on 15 pounds of muscle, and you did that against the Browns. Man, I kind of have some question marks around him. And Jesse James, I have question marks around him because you got to think he had 41 yards, 2 TDs in the red zone, but Pittsburgh still traded for Vance McDonald. So it's not somebody I'd rush out to go add. With that being said, just because you don't know what it's going to look like once Vance McDonald gets brought up to speed.
I will say one thing real quick about that is on one of his touchdowns, they designed a tight end screen just for him, and he scored a touchdown on that play.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, Deshaun Kaiser, serviceable QB2 if you're playing a Superflex league or 2 QB league. It's pretty good. Isaiah Crowell, I said would struggle. He had 17 carries, 33 yards, less than 2 yards per carry, guys. That's very, very rough. And my favorite player of this side of the ball that obviously I was telling everybody was going to have a decent game. 5 receptions, 6 yards for Corey Coleman, 53 yards, and 1 TD. I like it. It looks like Kaiser likes Coleman, and that's probably my favorite player on that side of the ball.
Yeah, Coleman looked well in that game, and Britt looked like sounds like he's in a doghouse there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is there, but Coleman is a young wide receiver, and hopefully he takes a step forward with having, Kaiser's eye all day long.
I think for his draft class this year, I think he's probably going to be one of the best wide receivers out of that class this year.
All right, so let's take a little quick break and get to know you. So here's my question. Who's your favorite superhero?
Oh, okay. Y'all may not know this. Some of y'all might. I am a big comic book nerd, okay? Like, I collect first appearance comic books, all this stuff. Like, you may not know it, but trust me, I'm all about it. And my favorite superhero, people can say he's a villain. I will argue the differ. I think he's an anti-hero, but it is Magneto.
Okay. X-Men.
Yep. And the reason why I like Magneto, if you all want to hear the argument, is everybody talks about how he's such an extremist trying to hurt other people. Think about it this. Since the time you were born, you've been persecuted against for being different, for being a Jew. Your family was killed right in front of your eyes. And then you become a mutant, you're different. And you are the next step in evolution, right? You could be a god among men. And these people are killing your kind again because you all are different, because they're scared of you all. Why not show your power? Why not be that guy to be an activist and all that? And in one of my favorite comic books, he created a whole island for just mutants, Genosha, and they were fine. Peace was starting to come around the world. They had over 1 million mutants there, and it became pretty much nuked by the Sentinels, which was controlled by humans, and killed everyone. There was less than 100 survivors out of 1 million people, and it's just like, wow, it was another genocide. And I love Magneto. I love what he stands for, and I just love his powers too, controlling all metal. Come on, this is great.
I got to. Well, I'm a Superman fan. Like he's my all-time favorite. The greatest alien of all time comes to Earth and saves it from all types of things.
But he gets beat by a man in a suit. I mean, Lex Luthor can beat him.
Yeah.
He has no superpowers.
Yeah, but if you're smart enough, anybody could be beaten.
Touche.
And then my other secondary favorite is Wolverine. I love Wolverine.
I love him too.
I love the fact that he regenerates so quick and beats everybody, and I find him amazing.
I have some good. They're called Old Man Logan comics, and it's not quite the way the movie went. It's actually really different. I'll see if I can find them, and I might have you read them because he's one of my favorites too. And it's just, I've actually discussed one day in the future, if I have a kid, naming my child Logan.
Nice. I was so sad when he died in the movie.
What about the foresight of Wolverine, the movie Wolverine, right? That I forget her name, Kyoki.
Yeah.
When she saw in the future him holding his heart in his hand.
Yep.
And then when he dies, he's actually holding his daughter's hand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it's essentially
symbolic, yeah.
I was just like, wow, gives you goosebumps. I was like, that's great writing. I was like, great script work, guys.
On to the next one.
Yep. Who do you got?
Let's see. I got Jacksonville at Houston. So we had a big injury real quick. Allen Robinson went out, tore his ACL.
Yep.
And it wasn't a good thing, but Jacksonville dominated Houston in this game.
Who are some people you would target if you have Allen Robinson?
I mean, if I want to stay on the same team, I'm going Hearns or Lee. And Hearns actually had 3 catches for 42 yards, but I think Lee is the guy to go after in this situation.
He struggled in that game, though, too. I mean, both had great defenses, though.
I don't want any piece of this Jacksonville offense unless it's Leonard Fournette, because I think they're going to focus on him, and I think that injury just makes him more valuable to them. I want to say Bortles is going to be, only going to be throwing the ball around 20 times a game, and I don't think any receiver is going to really, really stand out. So I don't want any of those wide receivers, but if I have to, it's going to be Lee. Fournette had a phenomenal game, 26 carries, 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches for 24 yards, And, Houston is a tough defense to go against. On the other side, Deshaun Watson and Tom Savage, they struggled. 164 yards total, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Savage still does not have a touchdown pass thrown in his career. And Watson did that on, I think, like his 5th throw or something like that. It was crazy.
One stat that I like is he targeted DeAndre Hopkins 7 times in the second half.
Yeah, in total, Hopkins had 16 targets. Came down with 7 of them for 55 and a touchdown. To me, Watson is a guy who's always going to overthrow people. That's just what I've always seen him do. College, practice, at the combine, he always overthrew people. But if he can get that under control, I think he has a shot at being an NFL guy.
Yes.
Fournette was a volume play. I said that I thought he was going to struggle against this defense, but he actually did well. So I was kind of off on that one. Lamar Miller, he had 19 total touches. 65 yards rushing, 31 receiving. It's a solid day, and I think that's their game plan going forward is they're going to use him as much as they can. Fedorowicz just went on the IR today with a concussion, so I still don't want anything to do with him.
On the IR?
Yeah,
for him. Ooh.
For a concussion, so it's probably a pretty bad one. I think that's about it. 16 targets, though, for Hopkins really stands out.
Yeah, it makes me kind of want to get some Hopkins stock if I can.
I mean, it's not a great ratio, but it's still 16 targets. I believe is leader of the week, which that's a good thing for wide receivers. Targets is key because that always gives them a chance at catching balls.
It's opportunity, and Hopkins is one of those guys. I would give him any 50-50 ball. Like if I was a QB, I'd pass it to him in 50-50 situations.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're trying to do, trying to almost force the ball to him or close to him, just so he gets his numbers.
Now, the next game up was one of my favorite games to have previewed. LA Rams versus Indianapolis Colts. What did I say? Rams D, Rams D, Rams D. That game started off 10-0. Pick 6 on the first pass from Scott Tolzien.
I told you, Tolzien is not an NFL quarterback.
Man, it was bad. He had 2 pick 6s, and then they started Brissett late. He had 2 passes for 51 yards, one of them being for 50 yards to T.Y. Hilton right off the bat. I think Brissett, did they already say he was going to be the starter next week, I believe?
Yep.
Yeah. One of my favorite people to look at, trying to get on the cheap, would be T.Y. Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at him in the future. Then on the other side of the ball, Rams, man. Jared Goff looked great. I was like, 29 attempts, 21 completions, 306 yards, 1 TD. Looked confident the whole time. Trusting his O-line, trusted Gurley. Gurley struggled in the run game, but his usage is there. He had 19 rushes for 40 yards. Yeah, that sucks. 1 TD, was targeted 6 times in the past game, 5 catches, 56 yards. I'm just saying, that's a total 96 yards, 1 TD. I don't care how he got it. He got it. Like, those are startable numbers for me. Very serviceable. Cooper Kupp, you and I both were harping on him last week, like telling everybody, hey, beating his drum. Like, this guy, go after him. 4 receptions, 6 targets, 76 yards, TD. Looks good. Another interesting person, Sammy Watkins. I didn't think he was going to be this targeted coming off. He had 5 targets, 5 receptions, 58 yards. Moving forward, I could see a lot more from him. In fact, in one of my leagues, somebody already sent me a trade for him. They wanted to give me Emmanuel Sanders for Sammy Watkins, and I'm not going to do that. I like Sammy Watkins has a much, much higher ceiling than Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders is going to be the PPR guy, the short little guy underneath, where Watkins is going to be that I'm going over the top and I'm catching a long touchdown.
And keep in mind, in this league, I'm stacked at wide receiver too. I think I have like Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas, and Keenan Allen. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm...
Pass, next.
Give me a running back. Who do you got next?
My game, Seattle at Green Bay.
Oh, there we go.
I got to watch this game, and first things first is Eddie Lacy looks slow and out of shape.
Drop him if you have him.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with Eddie Lacy. Like, get rid of him. I got another roster spot for somebody else. Chris Carson, as a matter of fact, I would rather have him. 6 carries, 39 yards, 1 catch for 10 yards.
I actually had him in one league, and I dropped him for Rex Burkhead on Saturday. And man, I was like, God, I was like, he had. I think he led the team in snap counts too for Seattle on running backs.
Yeah, he did. He did for the running backs. He did. Russell Wilson struggled, but I think it's the new look Green Bay defense. Russell Wilson had 158 yards passing. He had 2 carries for 40 yards, and he had one nice run to keep the drive alive. Not much scoring on this one. Doug Baldwin does what Doug Baldwin does. 4 catches, 63 yards. That's what he does. My sleeper for the week, Richardson, 7 targets, 4 catches, 59 yards.
I like it. He's being targeted.
And
Green Bay had that defense.
And he was cheap. So that's one of my guys that I think I hit on. Jimmy Graham struggled. 7 targets, caught 3 of them for 8 yards. That's not usual for Jimmy Graham. Graham usually catches stuff and runs. He had no room to go anywhere. Aaron Rodgers next. He does what he always does. 311, a touchdown, 1 interception, 7 rushes for 21 yards. He's an elite quarterback. That's what he does.
He struggled a lot, though, in that first half.
Yeah, the first half was like a slugfest. Those were all body blows. And then you got Ty Montgomery, 19 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown, 4 targets, 4 receptions for 39 yards. I mean, that's 23 total touches for Montgomery, and that's a pretty good load for Ty Montgomery. And I think that's what he's going to get going forward.
Jamal Williams, too, didn't look very, very good in that game.
No, so his backups don't look good, but he looks good, so I think he's got a solid hold on that job. Jordy Nelson, 8 targets, 7 catches, 79 yards, and a long touchdown on a 12-man on the field against him. Aaron Rodgers just threw it deep down the middle of the field, and he caught it. It was a good play. Devontae Adams, 7 targets, 3 catches for 47 yards. He was shadowed by Sherman all day long. So for him just to get those 3 passes, that's pretty good. Randall Cobb, 13 targets, 9 catches for 85 yards.
I will say, I was beating his drum too.
Yeah, the
slot's their weakest spot on that Seattle defense.
And I think that's the point is, you had Nelson guarded by their number 1, then you had Sherman go with Devontae Adams that left Cobb in the slot trying to go against those linebackers and safeties, and he did well, really well. He probably saved the game on a bunch of third downs.
Oh, undoubtedly. I love seeing his usage early in that game.
And then Martellus Bennett. Everybody had high hopes for Martellus. I don't think this is a good game to get in with Martellus, but he still had 6 targets, 3 catches for 43 yards, which is solid. I mean, that's decent for a tight end going against Seattle. The only other thing I got here is Paul Richardson was on the field for 83% of Seattle snaps, which is a pretty high amount. So I think he has the number 2 spot locked up for Seattle.
I like Richardson moving forward all the way, but I mean, there's not much else you can say about that game. I mean, that first half was hard to watch, man. It was a punt fest.
It was a heavyweight battle. Yeah. You see the first 3 or 4 rounds go all body blows, and then after that you start seeing the headshots, and that's what we saw in the end.
So my next game is San Francisco versus the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton, he looks like he's working on that shoulder. He didn't look great, but he threw 25 times, 14 completions, 171, 2 TDs, 1 interception. I'm kind of not wanting to have any stock in that backfield right now because Stewart and McCaffrey. Stewart out-touched McCaffrey in every way with a total, they had the same amount of touches. He had 18 rushes, 65 yards, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 17 yards, and a touchdown. McCaffrey, 13 for 47, 7 targets, 5 completions, or 5 receptions for 38 yards. Kind of struggled. Kelvin Benjamin, 5 targets, 1 reception, 25 yards. Really, really bad. Kind of burned me in a few leagues. I like Kelvin Benjamin going forward still. And then one of the players on San Francisco is probably the only highlight I would say. We touched on Goodwin, Garcon, and Kittle on last week, saying these are players that, could all have good games. You could get cheap on DFS, maybe deeper leagues, flex options, depending on your team. Garcon, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 81 yards. That's what everybody should have expected from him. Yeah,
that's solid for Garcon. I mean, that's what I think he's going to get every week.
Then Kittle and Goodwin both each had 6 targets. Goodwin, 3 receptions, 21 yards. Kind of rough, but I like that the targets are there. And George Kittle, 5 receptions on 6 targets. I like that he's completing those catches, but again, 27 yards. The receptions targets for both there. Just more yards, more red zone usage. But on that game, I mean, they only scored 3 points, so you can't imagine much.
Yeah, Kittle's that young tight end that's going to improve over the season. It's just one of those things where you got to give him time. 5 targets, 5 catches. That's still really, really good for him.
Yeah. All right, who do you got next?
I got the Giants in Dallas, and I actually got to watch this game, and I think I got to watch 5 games total this week, which to me is amazing. I would watch football all day if I could. But anyway, I watched this game. Eli looked brutal. He finished with 220, one pick, no touchdowns. It just looked like they were out of sync without Odell.
He's playing old man QB. Like, he's just sitting there, out of touch, really just standing in the pocket, not mobile at all. He never was a mobile QB, but, man, you got to start moving with the times. You got pass rushes coming at you. You don't have a run game, and you're passing into double coverage.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Eli, but, I mean, if he's cheap enough, I'll take a gamble on him. Paul Perkins led the backfield, which isn't saying much here. 7 carries for 16 yards. That's just brutal to handle. He had 3 targets, caught 2 of them for 9 yards. 25 total in a game is not a good thing. Shane Vereen out of the backfield, didn't carry the ball once, but he had caught the ball 9 times for 51 yards. I mean, if he was a desperation flex play if you needed somebody because of the bye week, or the 2 teams that were on buys. Brandon Marshall looked horrible. I mean, I watched the game. It looked like he wasn't even in the game. 4 targets, 1 catch for 10 yards. If I had to say there was a 1 star on the game, I would say Sterling Shepard.
Yeah.
8 targets, 7 catches for 44 yards. I mean, he did what the offense asked of him. He went down the field, caught some balls, and moved the chains, which, I mean, I know there's no Odell, but I think that Shepard's going to move into that number 2 over Marshall when Odell gets back.
I like that. Also, an interesting stat I found. So, Eli Manning targeting Odell Beckham. Passer rating of 114.9. Eli Manning targeting any other receiver, 79.
Wow.
I'm just saying, without Odell, I'm staying away from the whole Giants offense altogether.
Yeah, I'm hopefully when Odell gets back, it opens up, the game for everybody. Perkins, Shepard, and then my favorite, Evan Ingram. 5 targets, 4 catches for 44 yards. It's a solid debut for him. He's that young guy that's going to learn a little bit and get down the field, I think, some more.
I really thought New York was going to win that game.
Man, it was ugly. I don't want to watch that kind of offense again.
Oh, my God, it was bad.
And then on the other side, Dak Prescott, 268, a touchdown, 3 carries for 24. Improvement from what he's done in the past against the Giants.
I think the most he had was 179.
Yeah, he was under 200 almost every game. Every game he was under 200 yards.
Both games last year.
Yeah, so that's a big improvement against him. And I think that's what they want to do going forward is let Dak control that offense, which is a great thing because you also have Zeke Elliott in the backfield. 24 carries, 104 yards, 5 targets, 5 catches for 43 yards. So that's 147 total yards for Zeke. I mean, that's and a huge workload. That's almost 30 touches in the first week of the season, which, I mean, that's what you want out of your bell cow running backs.
Yeah.
Des Bryant struggled again, and everybody knew that was coming. 9 targets.
Jenkins, man.
9 targets, 2 catches for 43 yards, and I think 35 of them came on 1 play. He's going to struggle in games where he's going against players like Janoris Jenkins.
And if you look at his schedule, the whole year it's like that.
Yeah, it's a brutal schedule. But I still think he's going to get more targets going forward, which, you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah. He's never been a high volume player. He's been one of those players that is a red zone threat every time every time he's in the red zone.
Yeah, and I'll take that out of him. Cole Beasley would be the next guy that I would kind of look at. 5 targets, 3 catches, 32 yards. But then the star receiver of the day, Jason Witten, 9 targets, 7 catches, 59 yards, and 1 touchdown. He was on my sleeper list for the week, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Now, are you going to buy him going forward, or do you think it's just because Des Bryant was so ineffective against Jenkins?
I mean, 9 targets is hard to dismiss at the tight end position. That might be...
I feel like that's game script, though, because the secondary was pretty tough for just overall. Like, Cole Beasley was just doing it on curls and slants, and Dez couldn't break free. Williams was actually looking good down the field and then got hurt. Mm-hmm. But, man, that Jason Witten, I wonder if it's game script that was dictating that.
Well, the Giants are actually pretty bad at covering a tight end, so it's possible it's game script. Let's keep an eye on it and think about that for next week.
Yeah. All right, so my last game that I'm covering is New Orleans and Minnesota, and I loved this game because, man, it was great. Drew Brees struggled. Alvin Kamara is my favorite person in that backfield to own. People, he's going to be the back going forward. Yeah, the stat line doesn't look good, but he had 31 snaps on that offense, which Adrian Peterson, less than 20. Mark Ingram, less than 20. And I'm just saying, obviously Kamara is that guy they want to feature, and he looks like the best back. I'm trying to get him in leagues. The sleeper I had in this game was actually Kobe Fleener, and without Snead, he has his best games. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. If you flexed him as a tight end, or you started him in DFS, great stat line because he was cheap. Somebody you could buy low on, pick up off the waivers. I mean, I love that. Then the other side, Minnesota looks scary with this type of Bradford. Yeah, I know it's the Saints defense, and anybody looks good against Saints defense, but looking that good. He had 5 incompletions. 2 of them were drops by Dalvin Cook. I'm just saying, that's great. He had 341 passing yards, 3 TDs. He was passing downfield, he was passing shorts, he was passing anywhere, and he was accurate the whole time. He passed Stephon Diggs open twice. There was one pass that he threw to Stephon Diggs. He was just trusting his receiver, and he came down with it in the end zone for a touchdown. And I was just like, man, that was a great play by him. Dalvin Cook now has a franchise record for most rushing yards by a rookie running back for Minnesota, which Adrian Peterson had it before with 107. He got it for 127. He also was targeted 5 times in the passing game, 3 receptions, 10 yards. Stephon Diggs, 1 incompletion, 93 yards, 2 TDs, total of 7 receptions. Man, that's wide receiver 1 all day long.
So who is the number 1 wide receiver in Minnesota? Is it Thielen or is it Diggs?
Between Thielen and Diggs, I'm going to go Diggs. I think they stopped passing down the field to Diggs because they were up. There was no reason to take risks and go downfield. Thielen, a lot of his plays were short passes, and it was just yards after the catch, and he looked good. But he does look like one of Bradford's number 1 targets. But you got to look. It's only a 2 target difference between Diggs and Thielen. And in the red zone, he wasn't looking towards Thielen because Thielen's not a big body receiver. Look at him like Cole Beasley, just better. You got Diggs, though. That guy is talented. Bradford was trusting him in the red zone. Good. This whole offense moves up for me. Rudolph wasn't featured that much, which was very surprising to me. He had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 26 yards, and a TD. But maybe it was game script. Maybe we see Rudolph move up later on. But right now, I'm looking at Diggs, Thielen, and Cook. And if you need a QB, Bradford is available in almost 80% of all leagues. I'm just saying, that's a great flex option. That's a great change of pace if you need matchup. And he has the second easiest schedule based on strength of schedule on QBs behind Drew Brees.
I believe Bradford is the all-time most accurate NFL quarterback.
Yeah, last year 70%. I think it was 72%. He shattered the percentage because I think before it was only like 70, and I know 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot.
It's huge in the NFL. I love that game. To me, Minnesota's offense looks really, really good, and I don't see it slowing down even when they have a tough matchup. Bradford was my DFS guy for the week. He was my quarterback in all my lineups.
One thing he actually won, it would have been a bust week for me on DFS, except for Bradford. He actually saved me in pretty much all of it, and I made a total of $10. But hey, it's still making money. Another interesting thing that I want to put out there, Minnesota changed how they run their offense. It's a combination of their last 3 years. Usually they were a run-first team, pounding the ball with Adrian Peterson. They don't look like that anymore. They look like a complete offense who is going to control time of possession and beat you on defense. But yesterday, they beat you on offense. They just shut you down.
They look like an underrated offense.
Yes.
So my last game was Chargers at Denver. I watched it again. I love just watching football. I could sit there. I don't care if it's a bad matchup. I'll watch it all day long. Phillip Rivers finished the day with 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. It was a good day, but he still remained under 200 yards, which was we talked about it last week. Gordon had 23 total touches in the game. 18 carries, 54 yards, 5 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. He was a guy that kept them in the game. He moved the chains a bunch on them.
I will say that touchdown, if you all watched it or haven't watched it, you need to watch that clip. He just embarrassed that rookie. He just dove over top of him, and it was a great catch. And you saw Rivers do a jumping pass like it was Johnny Unitas. Like, I was just like, okay. Like,
it was a good play, and yeah, I think that's what we're going to see more of going forward. I think he's going to be the bell cow, dump offs, run as much as he can, and then try and use a play action with Keenan Allen and Tyrell Williams. Tyrell Williams, Keenan Allen, they combined for 10 catches for 89 yards and 1 touchdown. 17 targets between them. They could not get open, and when they did, they were tackled immediately. Yeah,
Keenan Allen wasn't very effective, but it's that Denver defense. You can't, it's
the no-fly zone.
Yeah.
And then Antonio Gates, 3 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards, which I thought was surprising because I thought the tight ends would have more play in this game. Hunter Henry had nothing. He stayed in and blocked all game long. On the other side, I think the star of the game was, and it's hard to say, is Simeon. I mean, he only threw for 219 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He ran the ball 6 times for 19 yards and a rushing touchdown, and he looked like a real NFL quarterback, which was surprising. Yeah.
I liked it.
C.J. Anderson, 20 carries, 81 yards, 1 catch for 7. Jamal Charles was looking good, 10 carries for 40 yards, but he had a huge fumble in the fourth quarter that lit the Chargers back in the game. So I think that they're going to try and limit his amount of carries going forward. Demaryius Thomas, 5 catches, 67 yards. Emmanuel Sanders, 3 catches for 26 yards. And, I mean, the Chargers are another one of those underrated defenses that don't get much credit. In fact, they had 4 sacks and 2 turnovers against Denver. And Denver only had 1 sack and 1 turnover. So I think that Chargers defense is better than people think.
I agree. Well, now we're going to bring in our special guest, Nathan from our Listener League. Nathan's nice team is going to be sitting in with us, and we're going to ask him a couple questions about his team, his first draft experience, and what he's thinking about football so far. So, Nathan, your first draft experience was Auction League here at the 816 studio. How do you feel about it?
It was pretty exciting. I had a great time.
Yeah? Was there any players that you were sitting there that you wanted more than others that you were just targeting? I mean, I know it's your first draft and you're new to it. Were you targeting players from teams that you specifically liked?
Well, I wanted Julio, but I think I spent way too much on him. I've spent about 50 on him, and
you spent 50 on him, but that's right where he should go. I mean, you got to look at where some of these other wide receivers got spent on. I think Antonio Brown went 56, and then you capped it off with Doug Baldwin for 24.
Yeah, I got him for pretty cheap. I was pretty happy about that. I wish I had not spent so much on Golden Tate. I spent around 17, but at that time, everybody was going for pretty cheap, so I think I could have got him for less than that.
Well, you got to look, though, what he did. Are you happy with what he did? Are you happy with how much you spent on him now?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy because he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, 10 receptions, 107 yards, man. I would spend $17 on that.
Yeah.
So, what was one of your favorite pickups throughout your whole team?
I'd have to say Goff or Golden Tate.
Goff or Golden Tate, I like it. So, our other host, Tom, he loves Dalvin Cook, though, on that team, and I do too. It's probably one of my favorite pickups on your team next to Doug Baldwin. I believe I was bidding on both of those, and you still got me. Another person that I like that you picked up was Andrew Luck. Now, you're looking towards the future with him, and I like that you had the insight to look towards the future. But You bid my max dollar amount on him. Like, we were going back and forth, and $9 was my max, and you bid 9. I was like, well, I'm not going past 9. And I was like, man, like, you got me. I was like, I was duped. I was like, this rookie comes in here and dupes me.
Right. Yeah, I was getting close to that being my max too. Yeah. But I'm happy I got him.
So, this being your first time doing fantasy football and all that, how well do you expect to do?
I'm hoping to do pretty good. This first week I didn't do too good, but I'm hoping that in the future I do pretty good.
Are you planning on making the playoffs? Like, is that your goal, or are you just trying to like break even on like your record?
I'm planning on making the playoffs.
I like it. Are you gonna win though? Are you confident about it?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna win.
All right. So, what's your favorite football team?
The Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, I like it. You a Russell Wilson fan then?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that backfield?
I don't really know, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that went pretty well. Do you have anything that you would like to add in on it? Any trades you want to accept? Hint, hint.
We'll see.
Any advice going forward?
Other than Tate, not really. Besides, I think I could have gotten someone else besides Savage, but other than that.
I mean, being a 2 QB league, you got 3 QBs, and I think Savage was just supposed to be a stopgap because everybody expected Andrew Luck to kind of be back sooner than later. Now it's looking like he's going to be back in October. But right. I think if you can find somebody, I know in this league specifically, Jacoby Brissett's available, so maybe you drop Savage. Watson's available too. Now you drop Savage for Watson or Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
And, I mean, once Luck comes back, I mean, you can drop Jacoby Brissett easily because, I mean, same team.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us, Nate. So that was Nathan from our listener league. Young man. Doing really well, though. I like it. All right, Tom. I want to get into some of our waiver wire gems. Where is a gold mine that you want to hit?
No, number one on my list in PPR leagues is Tariq Cohen. I was on him last week. I actually had to start him in the league because of bye weeks.
All right. So give me your top 5 from the games you covered.
All right. Cohen is my number 1. Javoris Allen in Baltimore is my number 2. Kendall Wright, number 3. Carson from Seattle is my number 4. And then I got Macklin in that Baltimore game as my number 5.
I like it. I think I'd be a little bit higher on Carson than Javoris Allen, but it's just because I feel like he can be the feature back later on in the year, but I think Javoris Allen's going to have a more immediate impact in that Danny Woodhead role.
Well, yeah, exactly. What I think that Javoris Allen is going to be is the Danny Woodhead role, and I think he's an actually better runner than Terrence West, and I don't want to say that he's going to take over the job. I just think that he gives West more of a break, and he'll have more targets and more carries.
All right. I like it. So for me, from my games that I covered, my top 5 waiver wire gems. I got to lead it off with the Galladay in, okay? Kenny Galladay, you know his role in that offense now. It's not just red zone. It's just a big body reception target. Matt Stafford needed that. So, because Eric Ebron's never stepped forward, and it's crazy that you see Kenny Galladay as a rookie come in and do more than Eric Ebron's done.
Yeah, he's that big body guy that they don't really have besides Ebron.
Yeah. My number 2 target, I'm still on the fence about because they just signed Chris Johnson, but Kyren Williams, I feel like it's going to be a running back by committee, so that's why I'm a little bit lower on him than most. In fact, I would probably take Cooper Kupp over him, and Cooper Kupp's actually my number 3. If you have wide receivers troubles in a PPR league, you need to get Cooper Kupp. He's a solid flex option.
Yeah, I love Cooper Kupp. I have the whole time, and I had to start him in a league because I was on my bye weeks hurt.
Yeah. Then number 4, I can't believe how available he is. 80% of leagues, but Sam Bradford, Sammy Biscuits, floppy sleeves. Come on, man. This guy looked fantastic. I would love to add him if I didn't have him. He's a great option moving forward. Maybe you have bye week struggles. Maybe you don't have that good of a quarterback. Maybe you drafted Andy Dalton to be your starter. This guy right here, I suck. I'm bad at this stuff, guys.
Yeah, I love Bradford. Bradford is one of my targets late in drafts, and he was fine as my backup. And if you drafted Eli Manning to be there, if you drafted Flacco to be your guy, You know, if you drafted Dalton, why not look at this Bradford guy? His schedule seems to point to him leading this offense to places it's never been before.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have career highs across the board. Like, he's going to take a great step forward. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a top 5 QB, but I could see him being a top 10, maybe top 12 QB this year.
I could definitely see a top 10 finish because they surrounded him with everything he needs. He's got a tight end that he loves. He's got a running back now that could break tackles and take the ball deep in Dalvin Cook. He's got a number 1 in Stephon Diggs. He's got a number 2 in Adam Thielen, and they're letting him throw the ball where he's comfortable.
And you know what's great about this team? They built this team around second or later round draft picks. Like, it looked like they had hit gold on a lot of these picks. I think Diggs was, a third round?
Yeah, third round. 2015, I believe.
Yeah. So, this year 3 now? Or no, year 2? No, year 3.
Year 3.
Year 3 receiver rule. Come on, guys.
Yep.
And then my favorite on this list. People, I am a Kamara fan. I see this kid doing great things. I don't think you're going to see an immediate impact. But if you want to stash somebody away for later on in the season, I think you're going to see Kamara do some really good things, and I would probably pick him up now before, the pot gets much hotter.
Yeah, I like Kamara also. He was one of my stashes. So here's a real quick one for you. Would you stash Carson or Kamara?
I would stash Kamara because I'm scared of that O-line in Seattle.
Yeah, that O-line.
I love Carson too, don't get me wrong, but Kamara, I think he just has more things going for him right now with a better O-line.
All right, so let's do this real quick. Give me some of your buy low targets.
Buying low targets, my favorite one right now would probably be T.Y. Hilton. Okay, he struggled, all right, but I think he's a guy that you could easily buy low on, and that's probably my number 1 buy low. Another one would be Frank Gore for me. I'm actually very intrigued by him. I know everybody's worried about Marlon Mack, but I feel like they're slowing Frank Gore down until Andrew Luck comes back because they know what Frank Gore is. And then Kelvin Benjamin, I'm not going to send anything high that way, but I'll try and buy low, maybe a low RB flex option, something along that lines. I'll send that way. And another person I'm kind of interested in, do you buy low on Martavis Bryant?
Okay, so I agree on T.Y. Hilton. I think he's definitely a buy low, especially with Andrew Luck hopefully coming back soon. I think he's the way to go. I'm not a fan of Frank Gore. I think that going forward, we're going to see more and more of the explosive back in Marlon Mack. I'm sorry to say it, maybe Gore has finally hit the wall. Martavis Bryant, his talent is all there, and I don't understand why, he's just falling down against Cleveland. So I would go after Bryant.
Who's some of your buy low?
My buy lows are a little different. I think Jimmy Graham. I think he's a focal point of that offense, and the Green Bay Packers put a lockdown on him, but I think going forward, he's one of the guys that I want to try and go get.
All right.
Joe Mixon is another one. I think it's only a matter of time before his talent rises to the top, and he takes over that backfield and does what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be the lead back. He's supposed to, get 5 yards a carry and catch about 4 or 5 balls.
I think a lot of that, though, had to do with game script, though. Baltimore defense was just dominant.
Yeah, well, you turn the ball over 4 times, it's easy to be dominant. And then one of my other guys is Terrell Pryor. 6 for 66 is not bad, but he's also building chemistry with Kirk Cousins, and I think once they start getting on the same page, I could see bigger games for him.
Yeah, he had a total of 11 targets, so that's always great to see double-digit targets.
Mm-hmm. How about some of your sell high guys?
Selling high, man, that's one person I'm interested on that I'm not sure I feel good about is maybe Matt Stafford, but man, I love me some Matt Stafford. Man, maybe you sell high on Coby Fleener, but you're not going to get much because he's a tight end. I would look at selling high on Todd Gurley. Like, that's, again, the stats aren't there, but the numbers are.
I still like Todd Gurley going forward, but I think that a sell high, if you could get, maybe mix in another piece, another solid wide receiver, that would be something that I'd look for.
Yeah. And with Matt Stafford, the only reason he makes the sell high for me is it's never going to be higher. His stock's never going to be higher than what it is right now.
Yeah, he had a great game, so that's what you're looking for to sell high. I got one other one for you, and that's Randall Cobb.
Yeah, I would definitely sell high on him.
I don't think he's going to get another 13 targets again in a game, and I don't know if I want to go after the third wide receiver in that kind of offense.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's about it. Wrapping it up for the day. Oh, would you sell high on Alex Smith?
Yeah, I would. And in the 816, everybody knows about him right now. 4 touchdowns, 368. I don't know if we see that again from him.
Yeah, and if you're in the 816 area, even if you're a Chiefs fan, it may not feel good, but I'm sure somebody will pay a lot. So do it if they will pay it.
Yeah, that's what I say. Do it.
All right, guys. All right, thank you for joining us. We appreciate all the likes, comments, shares. We're getting a lot more views lately, subscribers. We appreciate it. Please send us more questions. Don't forget to listen to Mark Out Wrestling from 816 Podcasting with our friends of the show, Glenn and Anthony. They're great hosts of that. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and SoundCloud, please. 816 Podcasting. It's going to be great. We're doing a lot of good things. And you got to listen, guys. You got to listen because we give great information. I think for the most part, we hit some home runs on our picks last week. Moving forward, we're probably going to do most of our episodes on Saturdays, so you can listen to it before game time. And then we're going to do it on Mondays, so you can have waiver wires. So none of the Monday games will be in there. But, I mean, just it's best so everybody gets all the
waiver wire options, ad drops.
And other than that, guys, I appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate it. 816 Podcasting. Don't forget, like, share, get us out there. Thank you again.